Hey everyone, it's Amy here, and I'm very happy and excited to be in front of you today. Today, we're going to be talking about the book, The Art of Making Memories, and as always, as much as I share the main ideas from the book, I'm also just going to sprinkle in some of my reflections and things that I've learned. So, in other words, an interpretation of the book. And I really, really enjoyed this book. This book holds a special place in my heart. The author is, I might say his name wrong, Meik, it's Meik, so Meik, Wiking. That's the author and really an excellent storyteller. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. And you might be wondering why memories, like why the focus on memories and happiness. The importance of memory is even more so nowadays. I think sometimes because our world is so fast paced and we're always doing things, we sometimes forget to really savor the moment and realize that this could be a memory that we're creating. And I think probably my theme for 2024 has been intentionality or being intentional with what I do. And I think that really fits in very well with this ideas of memories, because not only will it hopefully allow you to look back with gratitude in your heart, but hopefully it also allows you to be more intentional with your time and how you spend it. Often we look back and maybe didn't realize in the moment what an amazing memory that was. So it's good to have appreciation for the present, because it might become the past that we look back on very fondly. Also, just make sure that we kind of are intentional with the way that we do our lives without giving up spontaneity and all those things, that we make sure that we sprinkle in milestones and things to celebrate, so that we don't feel like we're just on this never-ending hamster wheels. Also, the importance of memories is that they really evidently shape who we are. I mean, we are essentially made up of all of our memories. They impact us, they form our beliefs, they form the things that we like or don't like. They give us stories, they give depth to who we are as people. So they're incredibly important. And I also want to preface it by saying, I'm not saying now we need to plan trips to Paris every weekend and win big achievements all the time. I think the memories that might stand out for you the most could be very small, very things that if an outsider were to look on it, they may not realize the gravity of it, but you do. So sometimes the seemingly insignificant moments in our lives become incredibly significant. Something that's important to mention is that the author, Meik, he's a researcher and he researches happiness. And in fact, if you've ever looked at the Happiness Research Institute or look it up now, it's very interesting. They dedicate all their research to happiness and understanding this. So he's very well versed on the topic. And basically he said that people are happier when they tend to hold a positive, nostalgic view of their past. So in other words, if you are able to look fondly back on your memories, you will be a happier person. And I think there's a lot of ways you can look at this. Firstly, I don't think it means that it's set in stone. Some of us may have, unfortunately, had to live through a lot of negative experiences. And I hope that hearing this doesn't make you feel like, oh no, now I need to be unhappy, or this is why I'm unhappy. I think we can look at it the other way, that if you start focusing on making memories that you'll look back on fondly now, your future self will thank you. So that's the way I like to see it, and hopefully that convinces you to watch more. And then something interesting, I studied psychology, so this is something we studied in psychology, and it's something just interesting, I guess, for the fact that we're talking about memory, is the difference between episodic and semantic memory. So semantic memory is the kind of memory that's more facts-based. It's what you would use to study for tests, to remember facts and figures. Episodic memory has more emotions to it. It's the things that have a little bit more relations to people and things like that. So, to give you an example, it explains it a lot better in the book that semantic memory is remembering that Paris is the capital of France. An episodic memory would be remembering your trip to Paris 3 years ago, let's say. So you can see that episodic memory is a lot more to do with your personal observation of something. And so throughout this book, that's the kind of memory that is the focus. So now that you've just heard that making happy memories is likely to make a future you more happy, hopefully you're inspired to listen to these tips on how to actually create more happy memories because it is in your hands. And something that the author suggests is to harness the power of firsts. So, in other words, we often remember the first time we did something a lot more. And you can think about this as your first kiss, the first time you went to your university or school. You might remember the first house you moved into, whatever it is. It's likely that the first time you did something really sticks in our minds. And that's just because things that are novel or new to us just stand out. And whilst that is a fact, we can use that in creating happy memories. So harness this power first and do something for the first time. Think of something you'd like to do you haven't tried before and go out and do that. Now, sometimes this might require you stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit because generally things that are new or different can be a little bit uncomfortable. This new experience that you seek out doesn't have to be scary, it just needs to be different. And widening your comfort zone just a little bit is a good thing. And it will likely form part of a tapestry of memories that you'll be very grateful for. And a question that puts this all into perspective that I really liked was, what am I most likely to remember in 10 years? I really like this because I think that it makes you kind of look differently at your day-to-day activities and do things that may be different, maybe a little bit out there, but ultimately you'll be a lot more grateful for doing. So with that, think about something that you would like to try that you haven't tried yet. And maybe after this video, make a plan to go and do it. Next, the author reminds us that it's not just our eyes that help us remember and make memories, but we have 4 other senses that we can use to really make memories stand out. And as I read this, I really think for me it's smell. Smell is like a very, very important part of my memory. And so basically, I'm sure as I'm saying this, you can remember or think of a smell that particularly sparks up a memory. Or maybe you remember smelling something, usually food. I must say, I think food is something that really can be pretty emotional and does bring up a lot of smells. So usually some kind of food might bring up a memory and it's almost instant. And so the author suggests that you use this to your advantage. So the next time you do something that you want to make a memory, why not use some of your senses in some kind of way? So you could do perfume. I know for me, when I read this and something I tried was when I went on holiday, I would buy a different type of body cream than I usually would. So like an unusual brand that had a particularly strong scent. And so if I ever, smelt that body cream again, I would be reminded of that holiday. You could also use texture. If there's a blanket or a jersey you want to wear that might make a certain event stick in your mind. Also, having a particular song linked to some kind of event. And this phenomenon of other senses really bringing up a whole lot of memory is called the Proust phenomenon or the Madeline moment. And I was curious as to why it was called that, so I did some extra research. And it comes from a famous scene in Marcel Proust's novel In Search of Lost Time. In this scene, the narrator eats a madeleine, so a small French cake, and I think this was interesting because initially when I read it, I thought it was like after a girl, like Madeleine, some kind of girl, but it's actually a cake. So the narrator eats a cake dipped in tea, and the taste and smell of the sugar really makes his head flood with vivid memories from his childhood. So I find this interesting, and I think it would be interesting to kind of let it play out in your life. Now, although our phones, in a way, really help us create and remember memories, it can be a distraction to the present moment. And I'm a fan of Instagram and YouTube, obviously. I like kind of taking pictures and remembering what I do through pictures, through video, through a number of things. And I think that there can be a balance whereby it becomes a tool to creating memories and it doesn't take you away from the present moment, so that you look back and realize you were actually distracted from a potential memory that you could have made. And I did some extra research here, because I was sure that there was some statistics out there that would really freak us out. So it says that on average, we pick up our phones 58 times a day, which is a lot. And I'm sure that we could kind of take note of the things we want to commemorate without picking up our phone 58 times a day. And it also said that the average person spends 3 hours on their phone a day. And so if there's 365 days in a year, that's about 1,000 hours in a year, which equals 41 days. So essentially, I don't want to use the word waste, but waste 41 days on our phones. And so I'm not a hater of phones or social media. I do think that you can probably take back some of your time there. You can still have it, doesn't mean you need to delete it and move off the grid. I do think, though, that we can find a better balance. And so the author gives some tips, and this is actually something I used, which I still do, is just to take those apps that can suck up a lot of your time and don't put them on your home screen. Put them in other folders or put them somewhere else on the pages of your phone so that it's not immediate, because as we open our phones and it's the first thing we see, we're far more likely to click on it. If they're a little bit out of sight and there's a little bit of a barrier to get to it, it might reduce the amount of times we pick up our phones and the amount of time we spend on our phones. Next, the author says, although spontaneity is a great way to make memories, and we were speaking about harnessing the power of first, there's also a certain kind of intentionality that can be very useful to creating memories that you can look back on very fondly. And so he suggests that you somewhat plan things that you will celebrate or milestones you may achieve, and really think about, how would you like to celebrate that? How would you like to appreciate that you achieved that milestone or that you reached that milestone? And I really like this because it reminds me of the power of small wins. I think that we all do amazing things that our past self would look at us and be like, wow, I can't believe you did that. And because we get used to it, or we just get so wrapped in day to day, we forget to celebrate the small wins. And I feel that the small wins are an integral, vital part of anything that you do. So this also reminds me of the concept of the hedonic treadmill, which is basically that external things that happen to us, good or bad, like winning the lottery or being in a car accident, they have less of an effect on us than we think, because we do have an ability just to get used to things. And so using this idea of small wins, like celebrating a small milestone in your fitness routine or finishing a project, finishing something that you did, can just make us feel like, again, this treadmill, that we're not just on this treadmill going, and not stopping and realizing the progress that we're making. These small wins can allow us to really stop and take stock of the progress that we've made and celebrate it. Have fun doing that. Do it in a way that feels authentic to you and that you feel excited about. And as much as planning might seem counterintuitive to the art of making memories, it really is part of it. So I think there's no shame in planning the things that you want to have as a memory and really embrace that. And one of the quotes from the book, I'm going to read it here, that I really liked, that captures this very well is, to me, the good life, a full life, a rich life, is life both of purpose and pleasure. It is when life offers satisfaction with the present, hopes for the future, and peace with the past. So I really love this because if you have goals that you're working on, that's part of making memories. If you want to have fun and be a little silly, that's part of making memories. Finding gratitude for the things that you have, that's part of making memories, and being hopeful for what's to come is also very much part of it. And all together, it makes this beautiful, multifaceted thing on how you can live a rich life, and rich in the sense of happiness and a full spectrum of emotion too. And interestingly, Mike says that happiness often hinges on the alignment of three perspectives. And I'm also going to check to make sure I get it right. I really like this. It's how we perceive ourselves, who we aspire to become, and how others view us. So, this is a sense of congruency between these three parts of ourselves, that we feel we align with the person we want to be, and that others also view us the way that we want to be. So I think this makes a lot of sense when people achieve really amazing things, but they're still deeply unhappy. This could be an explanation to it, that there's a sense of them that isn't congruent, that the way that they are and the way that they aspire to be just aren't lining up, or the way that they see themselves and the way others see them don't line up. So I think this is a very interesting aspect of happiness, and thinking about, you, what does this mean to you? How do you want to be seen? How do you want to show up? How can you be intentional about trying to bring alignment to those three perspectives? So the author says true happiness emerges when our loved ones accept us for who we truly are, and when we successfully grow into the person we aspire to be. Something that I love that the author says is that the beauty of memories is in the uniqueness of them. You love your memories because they're unique to you. So embrace that. Do things that are unique, even if other people think it's weird or they don't agree or they have different ways of making memories. Embrace your uniqueness, because in 10 years, when you look back, would you want to be living memories because you thought other people liked that, or because you did? Do you want to know that you lived true to yourself? And I'm hoping that answer is yes. To close off, we explored the art of making memories and how this is a deeply personal journey. I shared some tips from the book on how to actually go about making these memories, and I hope that you took something away from it. I really enjoyed this book, and I'd highly recommend that you pick it up. Leave any comments below, and I'd love to hear from you.